Sometimes life tears away everything you thought mattered, leaving you stripped of comfort, certainty, and hope. That's exactly where Cal Morris found himself when his wife walked out, leaving him alone to raise his 12-year-old son Evan in a cramped Milwaukee apartment. His days blurred between a warehouse job that barely paid the bills and the constant gnaw of guilt that he couldn't give his boy a better life. Then, out of nowhere, a lawyer's office called. Cal's great-uncle Harlan had passed, leaving him an inheritance. Not money, not property in the city, but 43 acres of remote Wisconsin land wrapped around a swampy, half-dead lake the locals called Leechwater. Cal expected disappointment, but Evan's eyes lit up at the thought of adventure. That weekend, they packed their rusted Honda Civic and drove north, Evan chattering about fishing boats, sunsets, and cabins, while Cal nursed quiet dread. At a gas station along the way, an old attendant warned them to turn back, saying that lake had been nothing but trouble for 30 years. But Evan pressed his nose to the window, buzzing with excitement, and Cal drove on. Soon they reached the rusted gate marked Morris Property, No Trespassing. Beyond it stretched algae-choked waters, rotting barrels along the shore, and a sagging cabin collapsing into itself. The air reeked of chemical decay. To Cal it was a nightmare, but to Evan it was the start of a mystery. And when his son knelt by the murky shore and spotted something metallic buried beneath the slime, neither of them realized it would unravel a secret 4 decades in the making. The first days at Leechwater Lake tested every ounce of Cal's resolve. The cabin reeked of mold, the roof leaked, and the property seemed cursed by years of neglect. Yet Evan approached it like an explorer, sketching the barrels, cataloging their symbols, and mapping the shoreline with the curiosity of a born scientist. Cal discovered hidden folders in the cabin closet, government letters, old university research documents, and complaints Uncle Harlan had filed that had gone unanswered. Slowly, the picture grew stranger. This lake hadn't simply been neglected. It had been used as a dumping ground, then a testing site for something called bioremediation protocols. According to the yellowed papers, researchers from the University of Wisconsin had experimented with bacteria designed to clean polluted water while concentrating minerals. Among Uncle Harlan's papers sat a box of strange metal discs etched with unfamiliar symbols, some matching the markings on barrels by the lake. When Cal showed Evan, the boy's excitement surged. He linked the symbols in his sketches to those on the discs, theorizing the equipment wasn't random trash but part of a structured grid. The breakthrough came one crisp Saturday when Evan, knee-deep in the water despite his father's warnings, hauled up a cylindrical object unlike anything else they'd found. Stainless steel, perfectly preserved, covered in etched codes, and sealed tight as if meant to survive underwater for decades. When Cal shook it, something inside shifted with mechanical precision. It wasn't waste. It was storage. They had just uncovered a data capsule, and neither noticed the dark sedan watching from the tree line, its camera lens trained on them. The capsule became an obsession. Evan sketched every angle, decoding symbols that matched discs and equipment scattered around the lake. Together they uncovered the remnants of an old field station stamped with the university's seal, confirming scientists had once built a full research site here. But why abandon it? At the Cedar Falls Library, they dug into archives. Buried in dusty newspapers and research journals, they discovered the truth. A project led by Dr. Elena Vasquez had been abruptly shut down in 1987. Officially, it was budget cuts. But records hinted at something far more significant: experiments that used bacteria to clean pollution while extracting lithium from clay beneath the lake bed. Lithium, the lifeblood of electronics and batteries. Even in the 80s, it was valuable, today worth tens of millions. The capsule might hold decades of continuous data, but as Cal and Evan's excitement grew, so did danger. When they returned to the cabin one evening, tire tracks scarred the mud, tracks that hadn't been there before. Someone had been searching. Then, days later, two visitors arrived unannounced. David Chen, a slick acquisitions manager from a mining conglomerate called Mine Corp., and his stone-faced associate Rodriguez. They offered Cal $200,000 in cash for the contaminated land, calling it a burden, pretending they wanted to clean it. Cal knew better. He refused. That night, Evan whispered the fear neither dared say aloud. Mine Corp didn't just want the land. They knew about the capsule. Desperate for answers, Cal contacted Dr. Vasquez herself, now elderly but still a sharp professor emeritus. Meeting. In a Madison coffee shop, she filled in the missing pieces. Leechwater wasn't a disaster site. It was one of the most promising environmental research projects of its time. Their bacterial cultures had worked better than expected, purifying water while concentrating lithium. By 1987, even at old prices, the lake contained $4 million in extractable lithium. Today, closer to $40 million. But just as the project succeeded, Mine Corp leveraged its government connections to shut it down. Within months, the lake was deliberately recontaminated, making it appear worthless. Harlan had realized the truth, and for 40 years he resisted every attempt by Mine Corp to buy him out. He wasn't a hermit, he was a guardian. Vasquez warned Cal that Mine Corp had waited decades for Harlan's death. If they knew the capsule was recovered, they would stop at nothing. As Cal and Evan returned home, they found fresh signs of intrusion. Drawers disturbed, couch cushions shifted. Someone had searched the cabin again. That night, Cal buried the capsule beneath the stone foundation of the research station. If they came for it, they would not find it easily. But Mine Corp's patience was ending. SUVs without headlights prowled the roads, silhouettes moved in the trees, and Cal realized he wasn't just protecting property anymore. He was fighting the same battle his uncle had died for. Inside Uncle Harlan's old tackle box, Evan uncovered the evidence that changed everything. Wrapped in plastic beneath a false bottom lay decades of documents. Surveillance photos of Harlan, stolen medical records, even emails between Mine Corp executives referring to the Harlan Morris problem. One chilling memo recommended accelerated resolution due to Harlan's declining health. Another, dated just weeks before his death, approved deployment following natural conclusion. They hadn't waited for him to die, they'd arranged it. Worse, dossiers on Cal and Evan proved the corporation had been watching for years, preparing for this inheritance to change hands. Reading Harlan's handwritten notes, Cal discovered his uncle's mindset. Harlan had understood the lake's power wasn't just financial. The bacterial cultures could revolutionize environmental cleanup, and he swore never to let corporations exploit it. "This belongs to humanity, not profit," one note read. He had deliberately endured poverty and harassment to protect the secret. The revelation shook Cal. His uncle hadn't abandoned family. He had sacrificed everything for them. And now it was his turn to continue the fight. With evidence of corporate murder and conspiracy in their hands, Cal and Evan knew they had to go public. They photographed every document, uploaded backups, and prepared letters to Dr. Vasquez, an environmental lawyer named Marcus Webb, the FBI, and the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. If anything happened to them, the truth would still surface. But Mine Corp wasn't planning to wait. Around midnight, multiple SUVs rolled up, headlights off, men moving with military precision through the woods. The siege of Leechwater Lake had begun. Cal and Evan escaped long enough to reach Marcus Webb in Minneapolis, an independent environmental consultant who had fought Mine Corp before. Webb analyzed the capsule data, confirming their worst suspicions. The contamination had been deliberately maintained for decades. Every few years, spikes of toxic waste had been introduced to disguise the lake's true condition, while lithium concentrations quietly increased. In today's market, the lake was worth closer to $80 million. More than that, the bacterial cultures were still alive and thriving, more efficient than ever. Restoring the lake to pristine condition would take months, not decades. Webb's strategy was bold. File for emergency environmental protection, framing the lake not as a mine, but as a unique ecological site and crime scene. To protect themselves, they needed exposure. He connected them with investigative journalist Sarah Chen from the Star-Tribune. Her story could shield them by dragging Mine Corp into the public eye. But time was short. While Webb prepared legal filings, Mine Corp tightened the noose. Surveillance teams surrounded the cabin, communication jammers silenced phones, and accidents plagued nearby landowners who had resisted corporate buyouts. Inside the cabin, Cal and Evan listened to old cassette recordings of executives casually discussing Harlan as a liability, proof of a 40-year conspiracy between Mine Corp and corrupt officials. The scale of corruption was staggering, but so was the risk. Evan asked his father the question he already knew the answer to. "Are we really going to fight them?" Cal gripped his son's hand. "We're not just fighting for us, we're fighting for Uncle Harlan and for the truth." Morning broke over Leechwater with SUVs still stationed like predators along the road. Cal's phone signal flickered back, bringing urgent messages. Webb. Warning of corporate asset recovery specialists. Sarah Chen insisting she would publish the story by noon unless Cal confirmed they were safe. The choice was clear: go public or vanish. Cal chose exposure. Together with Evan, they transmitted evidence to multiple outlets, uploading data, recordings, and photographs that revealed Mine Corp's 40-year cover-up. But Mine Corp moved too. Black-clad operatives advanced on the cabin, cutting power and surrounding exits. Cal and Evan barricaded themselves inside, but they weren't helpless. Every document had been backed up, every truth duplicated across the internet. Even if they fell, the conspiracy was already unraveling. As armed men closed in, headlights appeared on the road, not Mine Corp, but state vehicles, alerted by Webb's emergency filings. Sirens split the dawn. Environmental officials, journalists, and local law enforcement converged on Leechwater Lake. For the first time, the shadow war fought in secret burst into public view. Cal and Evan stood on the porch, exhausted but defiant, as Mine Corp agents melted into the forest under the weight of exposure. Reporters swarmed with questions, cameras rolled, and Evan clutched the capsule like a trophy of truth. The battle wasn't over. Courts, corporations, and politics would still grind slowly, but the siege had been broken. The secret was out. In the weeks that followed, the story of Leechwater Lake captured national attention. Headlines exposed Mine Corp's conspiracy, lawsuits piled up, and investigations spread into federal agencies that had enabled the cover-up. Dr. Vasquez confirmed the capsule's data, and scientists marveled at bacterial cultures that could clean polluted lakes while unlocking mineral wealth. Environmental groups rallied to declare Leechwater a protected site, while renewable energy companies sought partnerships built on sustainability rather than corruption. For Cal and Evan, life transformed. They were no longer the abandoned family scraping by in a rusted Civic. They were survivors who carried forward Harlan's legacy, guardians of technology that could change the world. Evan, once just a boy with a sketchbook, was hailed as the young researcher who cracked the mystery. And Cal, the man who had lost everything, found a new identity, a father who refused to be broken, a whistleblower who chose truth over profit. Standing on the restored shore months later, watching clear water lap against a rebuilt dock, Cal whispered, "We did it, Harlan." And in that moment, hope finally returned. This was not just a story of inheritance. It was a story of resilience, justice, and a father and son who turned despair into destiny. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment on where you're listening from, and share this with someone who loves a story of truth defeating greed. Because tomorrow, I've got something even more powerful waiting for you.